The next video we're going to talk about in Chapter 2 is the Geometry Point tool. This creates civil points inside of your drawing. You can use points for placing cells or just points at certain locations, stations throughout your drawing. So the point tools are going to be located right next to where we've been working. So we worked in lines already, arcs, and now we're moving on to points. So let's go ahead and you can see we're in our horizontal geometry introduction file. We're going to go to Open Roads Modeling, Geometry. We're going to go to the points. So let's open up points. And there is an elevation mode that comes across here, so you can make 2D or 3D points. If you do the down arrow, you've got no elevation. You've got a value you can plug in there. Or you can give a terrain model elevation. Or you can also pick a plan element to base your elevations off of. So in SS4, SS10, you could come in and give it a value. Now it's allowing you to pick a terrain model or mesh or a plan element. So that's a little bit different there. For the first part, we'll just do none. Okay, rotation mode, absolute value. You can do none or relative to alignment, so you can rotate it. This is what you would use if you were going to place a cell out there, perhaps a direction arrow for your roadway or something like that. You can do relative to the alignment, or you can just give it an angle. Okay, we'll just do none here. Don't need any real rotation on a point that we're going to place. Feature definition. Okay, this is no feature definition right now, but feature definitions for points are different than feature definition for linear elements or for alignments. So they have their own feature definitions. So when you do the drop down arrow, you can go to the point, go to design, and we've got some design standards here and some drafting standards. So if you look at, we've been looking at kind of design standards, and all of the things that we have available in here can be used for points. Okay, so if you looked on a roadside, you could do a benchmark. Right away, you could do right away markers. Okay, and set it up that way. Flagpole, gate post. We can also use the drafting standards and do a regular Kogo point. Now, it really isn't a Kogo point, but it's named a Kogo point or a MoDOT point. You can pick any of those or some other survey type points. There's also a right-of-way parcels under here for existing property lines you can use. Okay, so let's go under our drafting standards, miscellaneous, and for this first one we're just going to pick the Kogo point. So that's going to throw it in there. It's also going to give it a name of Kogo point. This is where you might want to change the name to a number. So we can make it 100 and our description Kogo point 100. When we come out of the screen, it asks you to enter a data point. Okay, so you can do all kinds of different things here. You can have civil AccuDraw going, and you can do an XY. You can snap to the end of an element or a plan element, any one of those locations. Or you can just left click on the screen. So for the first one, we'll just left click on the screen. Kind of see what that looks like. It's a regular old Kogo point. Okay, if you do that a couple of times out there on the screen, you can even snap to the corner up there if you'd like. I'll show you how to do civil AccuDraw here in just a moment on that. But all you have to do then is right click when you're done and go to element selection tool, and let's pick on some of these points. Okay, and then see if you can get the heads up display on those. Very difficult to do sometimes. You have to zoom way in. If you can get the heads up display, you have the ability to delete it or to take a look at the properties. So I'm going to look at the properties on this one. You can see since we named it 100, it jumped the next point that we drew, which was this one, up to 101. So every time you use this tool, if you give it a number, it will increase it by 1 as you go through. Okay. Feature definitions, Kogo point. description, Kogo point, okay, and it's giving you an XY location. Alright, so that's your regular points tool. Not much to that one, but you can do other things with it. So just real quick, I'll show you underneath that point tool. What you could use this for would be maybe to give it a value. And let's say we gave it an elevation of 800, and we lock that elevation in. We can still use Kogo point, and we'll call this one 500. Okay, then we come out here and we'll place this point. I'm going to zoom in on that. You see that 1 there? So if we go F4 here, we've got the point out here, and we've also got a point in there. So there's the original point that we placed, and then this point out here is your 3D point. And that one is given elevation. Okay, as you can see on that one, we only have the ability to look at the properties, not delete. So you'd have to delete that original point. Okay, so feature name's 500. Up here, the origin is given for that particular one, but it should be at elevation of 800. And here's the original point that was given. Okay, elevation 800. So it creates this point out there in 3D. Kind of neat. Okay, the next part of that we'll take a look at under this point is to do one, instead of using a Kogo point feature definition, we're going to change that to a different one. So we're going to go feature definition, slide up to design standards, and let's take a look at roadside, and we're going to place a benchmark. Okay, so that's under point, design, design standards, roadside, benchmark. Okay, this is a benchmark here. I'll just call it benchmark 1. We'll come out here on the screen, and we're going to go ahead and left click to place it. And you can see what it does. Now there's no rotation to that. It is also given an 800 elevation because that was still in there. There's no rotation on this one. So let's take the elevation off. Set it at none. And then our rotation mode, let's do an absolute value. And we'll have it at north 90 degrees. So once you do that, if you come out on the screen, you'll see that you can left click to place it, and then you can also rotate it. Okay, so that's the difference between those 2 points. And you can do that with any of the cells that are in there. So if you didn't want benchmark, you wanted to do property line, you want to do, say, mailbox. So it's just going to pick a cell out there for you to place. And it places it on that point. Okay. So I'm going to go back and switch this to benchmark for our next tool. Okay, store equally spaced points between points. Okay, so in our point tool at the top, we're going to equal space points. Okay, on this one we get to tell it the number of points. Let's say that we want 10 of them. So we do 10 and enter, and that should lock it in. Placement mode is between points, or you can also do a long element, which is our next one over here. Elevation mode, again, you can have an elevation that you can turn on for these. Okay. Our rotation angle, I'm going to go ahead and turn that off for now on this one. And then you can give them names if you want. Now, this is going to be one element all the way through here. So even if I give it a name 100 or whatever, it will not advance each point up by 1. It considers what I'm doing right now as one element and not 10 separate elements. Okay, so if I do that, I can give that 100. If I come out here between points, I have to accept that I'm doing between points with the left. It says enter start point, so I enter a start point, and you can see as I move out, I'm getting 10 items in there. Okay, then I'm going to left click an endpoint, and it's going to place those out there. Okay, now when you pick on those, you'll see they're individual here, But as I go out, now I named it 100. It's named these 102, right? Because we have a 100 and a 101 already over here. So it named this point array a 102 because I already had the other points out here with that 100, and you can't have things named exactly the same. Okay, as I look at the properties of this one, you can see that it doesn't have any feature definition applied to this one. So if you wanted to change that, you could do that here. So if you wanted these to be benchmarks, you could change them to that, and you'll see they changed to benchmarks out there. Okay. There's no rotation. You could add that at this point. You could add an elevation at this point. The number of points right here is set at 10. If you needed that to be less, maybe 5, you can change that, and it will change that as well. The next type of geometry point allows you to store equally spaced points along an element. So we've stored them between points, two different points on the screen, and it'll paste a number of items in there. Now you can do equally spaced points along an element as well, so it's not just a straight shot. So that's underneath the points tool again, and we've got the equally spaced points. Okay, so our placement mode here, along an element or between points, we're doing along element. We can do the spacing based on a number of points. We can do an interval, say every 100 feet, every 50 feet, whatever you would like there. An even number, you can plug in an even number, so you can go every 2 feet, and a max interval, so you can say what the maximum distance between the points is. We'll just do a number of points just to show how it works. Our start method is a start and stop, or by segment. Let's do a start and stop. Number of points, we'll do 10. And you can lock in the start and stop stations if you'd like. We'll just do it on the screen. And then an offset of the along element. Let's say we want to go to the left side. So the left will be a negative number. So let's put in a negative offset of 100. Just to show how this works. So if we don't put any offset, if we leave it at 0, it'll go right along the element. But we're going to put a negative 100, so it should draw them in about 100 foot above or to the left of this alignment. Elevation mode, you can have the same elevation modes that we saw in the other point tools. And you can rotate this based on none, which will draw it just how it is drawn in the actual cell that's created. An absolute value, so you could say every 45 degrees, or you can do relative to an alignment. So we'll do relative to alignment on this one. It should rotate them based on that alignment. Okay, you can also fill in a rotation here. The reference alignment, if you know the alignment out of this dialog, you can select it from here if you want. Okay, so we're going to place a gas marker. So we're going to go out and select gas marker from the list, which would be under the points, design, and then we've got utilities, and there's a gas marker. Okay, so out here on the screen we've got along an alignment, or along an element. So we're going to accept that we're going to use that. Locate the plan element. We're going to locate this plan element right here, which is the center line. Our start, stop is the method that we're going to use, so we'll accept that. And we're going to be basing it off of the number of points. 10 is in the list there that we selected. And you can kind of see it's starting to draw those out on the screen as points. So we'll accept 10, and we'll go start station. We'll just start it at the beginning and go all the way to the end. Okay, our offset will be negative 100, accept that. And it says locate the rotation reference. Okay, so since we didn't put anything here in the reference rotation alignment, we get to choose it from the screen. So we'll left click on the alignment, and then it asks for a rotation. So if you don't know the rotation, you might zoom in here a little bit, but it's basing it off of the alignment. So we'll accept that, and it will place those gas points along the alignment. Okay. Alright, so we'll F4 that. Underneath the point tools, you are allowed to modify points, so you can do that. What you can modify here is no change whatsoever, a value you can put in here. You can base it off of a plan element or a named terrain model, so you're changing the elevation under that one, or you can also change the rotation. So if you had no change in here, it would only change your elevation and not your rotation. So if you wanted to change that after the fact, you could come in here to the elevation and put in a number, say 800. And so our elevation is going to be a value, so we'll accept that. 800, we'll accept that. No rotation change. And then we can locate these points out on the screen and reset to complete. Okay. So now there should be a couple of different ones on here. One that has an elevation and one that doesn't. Okay. So that is your point tools and your geometry point.